Come on, y'all know this song. Those that know it, we're gonna sing this all together. Come on, you know it, listen. So I'm gonna live better than I did before. That's right. Anything that was closed will become an open door. No longer thinking, no. I'm less than God made me. Yeah. Now I'm on the right track. Come on, those that know it, say, there's no ceiling to what I can do. As long as I'm leaning on it. As long as I'm leaning on you. No matter what I've been through, yeah. What I've been through. I know my blessings in you. I know my blessings in you. Everybody, come on, lift your voice and say, oh. Everybody say, oh. Lift your voice and say, oh. Second verse, come on, yeah. I realize that my past isn't what I was destined to be. That's right. So now I can move with the mind of victory. My praise has significant share. Good reason. 'Cause now I can reach my blessing. In this season, everybody say there's no. Yeah, yeah, yeah. As long as I'm leaning on you. Oh, God. No matter what I've been through. I know my blessings in you. Come on, everybody, lift your hands and say, there's no ceiling, there's no. Yeah, yeah.
Greetings and welcome to the Life You Imagine radio show. I am Vanessa Blackwell. And Takia Smith. We are the Life You Imagine radio show.
I'm sorry, y'all. I was muted.
We have a great show. Go ahead.
We have a great show for you today. We have guest host Indiana Tuggle and Squeaky Moore. We're going to get started today with a prayer from Vanessa Blackwell.
If you're feeling depressed, remember you're not alone. God is always with you. Don't be afraid to reach out to people in your family, your church, or your friend circles. Ask them to pray with you and for you, and continue to pray each day, asking God to draw you closer to himself. If you're feeling down today, or if you felt down for quite some time, pray this prayer with us today.
Amen.
Hello.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you that you never change, even when everything around us seems to be changing and be so unpredictable. Please sustain us, protect us, and enable us to stand. Thank you for the grace that you have provided. I pray you will use this radio show and this message during this difficult time for others to cause us to go deeper into our relationships with you, and that you would get the glory for anything that is produced in me. Amen. This week's scripture for the week is 1 Peter 5:7. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you.
This week's topic is learning to give it over to God. We're going to get started with Indiana Tuggle. Indiana Tuggle is a 3-time author, speaker, and coach. She turns her testimony of sexual abuse and domestic violence into purpose by helping women heal, uncover their identity in Christ, and discover their purpose. Her books include Stop Asking Why Are You Single, Saved, Single, and Frustrated, and Awaken the Dream. Indiana has a 4th book coming out, Finding Faith, Lessons Uncovered Through the Storm, is scheduled for a spring release. Her signature program is Right to Heal, an online course where she guides women through the healing process through journaling. She speaks to singles on topics of breaking soul ties and the healing process. Can we give a big, warm welcome to Indiana Tuggle?
Welcome.
Hi, Indiana. How you doing today?
Hello, Ms. Tugwell, are you on the line? Is Ms. Moore on the line? Squeaky, are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm here. Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we'll go into your interview, and we'll get Ms. Tuggle when she comes on the line.
Okay. Cool.
All right.
I'll read the bio. One woman, faces, one creator, many talents, is how Squeaky Moore likes to describe herself. As a writer, director, and producer, Squeaky's mission is to enlighten, uplift, and inspire. Squeaky's career path, one designed to artistically address socially conscious issues and invoke discussion for the greater good, lies at the very core of who she is and is continually reflected in her work. A Chicago native, Squeaky received an MFA from Roosevelt University's Conservatory, a natural storyteller with a gift for gab. She began using her gifts in 1999 after she created and staged a variety show, Act Like You Know, which served as catalyst to her starting her production company, More Squeaky Productions. She later created an improv-based comedy show, Good Times, based on the 1970s Good Times TV sitcom, followed by staging The Ugly Man. Squeaky moved to New York City to pursue acting, but would soon transition into fulfilling her true passion for writing, directing, and producing. After 64, a project on father absent homes that she produced and directed became a viral sensation. Your Black World described it as life-changing and powerful. On the heels of 64, Squeaky produced Father's Day, a film that addresses the effects of absentee fathers. Hold on, I pushed something. Okay, absentee fathers. A project on fathers absent from home, of absentee fathers, which debuted on the launch of Magic Johnson's Aspire TV network. Some of Squeaky's directing and producing credits include The Positive Controversy, a show in which she developed and is the showrunner of the latest film project, Face of Darkness, Journey to Healing, a documentary film that explores depression and suicide in the African American community.
Welcome, Squeaky Moore. How are you?
I'm excited. I'm really good, and I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. I've been following you on Facebook for a long time. I love your yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we're gonna jump right in. I know you wrote that project for depression. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that's one of our topic for tonight.
Mm-hmm. So, so my partner came to me on right after Lee Thompson Young had died by suicide, and we had talked about his particular struggle with depression, and I had talked about a struggle that I had or an instance where I dealt with depression really strongly and anxiety. And we had already talked about that as we were, throughout our friendship. And when that happened, he came to me and he was just like, we have to do something about this because it's just like it's happening everywhere we look. And it seemed like at that time it was a lot of people dying by suicide. You had Robin Williams. It was just like everybody talking about it, and or actually committing the act.
Mhm.
And he was like, we should do something about it. And we just really had a conversation about like how can we use our voice, how can we use our passion and things like that to, tell the story, to start a conversation. And it became like a mission to, help others, to give voice to what we were feeling, what we dealt with, how that looked, and to start a conversation. And that was the main goal at the time. We wanted to start a conversation. And so because there had been a trail of men and he was dealing with it too, we decided to start it with, discussing men. And so we put out a promo on it that we directed out. The goal was for it to be really edgy and dark, um, to really look at, what does this face of darkness look like? Because it's something that we don't talk about, we don't deal with. People are living in this darkness, but no one's really talking about it. And what does that look like in males? At the time, it was, what does it look like in men? And so, in African American men particularly. And so, we wanted to kind of paint a dark and edgy picture of that, just to kind of really just to test to see how many people would connect to this topic, and is this a topic that is worth exploring? And what we found was that it was in fact a topic that was worth exploring, and it became a mission in of itself outside of us using our film backgrounds and creating the project. It became just this way of life, or this we became activists through our work, and just in general every day we're activists. We helping people, talking to people, showing up, having that conversation, starting the conversation. And so that's really what the promo was about. And then we wanted to shoot a documentary, which we're still doing, a docu-series. And we wanted to have some sort of control over it ourselves. And so we started to shoot the documentary, but we wanted to kind of open the conversation up to not just males, but, in general, what does this look like in the African American communities altogether, or just in general, although our focus was primarily African American men and women, and how does different things play a role in that? Church, how does church play a role? How does our eating play a role? How do, all of these different, our socioeconomic system, all of this play a role in our mental health and the states we're in, and how do we do with that, and how do we journey to healing? And so, yeah, that was our goal, and that's kind of where we are now. We told one story, and we shared it with Centric, and Centric shared it, and they said it was the most shareable of all of their content.
Wow.
I think it had shared at that time over 1,200 times, and so we knew, and we know now that is exactly where where we wanted to focus a lot of this content. So the goal is to just really milk it. We are currently doing the documentary, the docuseries. I'm currently pitching reality shows around the subject at hand, a reality show, I should say, around the topics at hand. And so, yeah. And, we have a Facebook page called Face of Darkness Journey to Healing, just so we can be there to help people. And through that journey, we've encountered so many people with such stories, like people saying, like, literally, I found this at 4 a.m. I'm literally I'm about to take my life, and I found I typed in this. When we asked, well, how did you find this? They said, well, I typed in suicide and your video came up, and you can't talk me out of it. I'm still going to take my life. These are the type of conversations we've encountered. And, we're really happy to say that we're like, okay, we're not trying to talk you out of taking your life, but we are trying to get to know you better. And this is 3 years ago, maybe. And, even now, that person that just was for sure that we could not help him is still around today. And we've made a friend out of someone we didn't know anything about, that doesn't live in the same city or state as we do. And, it's those types of stories that keep us going.
Yes, praise God for that. Because sometimes if they need someone to talk to vent, to express it. Because like I said, I think they feel they're alone. A lot of times people feel that they're alone when they're going through depression and stuff like that. But you're never alone. And other people have been through things too. You know, you just have to find a way to deal with it.
Yeah. It does feel, having experienced it, it does feel like you are quite alone. It feels like, no one, if people, they don't really understand unless you're talking to someone who has actually um, been through that to that
Mm-hmm.
degree. It does kind of feel alone, like you are alone. Um, and so I understand that feeling. And for me, I'm just thankful that one, you know, that I did have a certain strength to get through it because it is
Yeah.
tough. It's tough to get through,
Yeah, it's a
and
tough time.
it's even with family, even the people that you feel like are closest to you, and you can have mates, you can be husband and wives, and unless they've been through it, they don't quite get it. They don't quite get it, and so that's even if you're having this conversation, or even if you have shared like, hey, I'm down, like I'm really down, and you may have that conversation right in that moment, it's still never quite understood, and then continually having that conversation makes you feel like, okay, you don't want to bring anybody else down. You don't want to be Debbie Downer to people. Is kind of what it feels like,
Mhm.
and that's what makes you decide, okay, maybe I should only give a little bit of how I'm feeling because people get it. Um,
Mm.
and that's why you feel so lonely
Wow.
in that moment.
Okay. Mhm. Well, that was a. Thank you for sharing that.
You're
So let's
welcome.
get to your pitching services that you offer.
Mhm.
What are some of the common mistakes that the business owners make while pitching
Business owners, well,
or film?
really, I think. Oh,
Yeah.
well, in general, I can give some general comments. Pitching is really storytelling, I think, and I think that's kind of what I would tell anybody. I'm just connecting with a person on the why you're pitching, why you're selling this, kind of connects the person to your brand, to your product, if it's a film or whatever. And so many of us go into, oh, it's this, it's that, and it's this, but we don't connect that person. Connect ourselves or our why to what we're selling or what we're sharing, or and so that's a big common mistake, not just sharing a simple story on why. And it doesn't have to take a long time. It's just, this is kind of why I do it, what I do, and what this product does. And another thing is, we don't share the benefit. Even if it's a
Yeah.
film, if it's a business or if it's a film, what is the benefit or the value of buying into this product? And we have to effectively communicate, if you buy this product, this is how you will benefit. Or if you buy into this film, this is how your network or your studio will benefit. And so I just think in general, we should be always selling the benefit of what it is. And I think, what the person on the receiving end will get should they buy into us in any kind of way. Um, so those are two common mistakes. A big common mistake, and another, and this is the third one. The third common mistake that people make is they don't dig deep enough in their research, and they don't use their research to their benefit in their pitch. Like, if I'm pitching, I'm researching so deep, and I'm going deeper and deeper, and I'm connecting all of the dots so that, and then I'm taking that research, I'm using it in my sell, in my sharing, in my storytelling. I'm using what I learned about their demographic. I'm using what I've learned about their company. I'm using, um, and I'm just selling it back to them as if I like I have the exact things they want because I've managed to take what it is I have and find the through line. And so without research, you can't find those through lines. You can't find what connects you to them. So know the truth, common mistakes.
Okay. All right. My next question is: in order to get through the door to pitch yourself and or your product, can you please share some of the steps that we should absolutely be taking?
Mm-hmm. Again, I think it is the research, right? Like I have to do just as much as I just have to research who I'm looking to pitch. I take what it is my product is, and um, and then I come up with a wish list, like who are the right people for me to connect to. Everybody isn't perfect, but who is the right person? Who can I marry my brand? Where am I like-minded? Where is there a conjoint mission? And then I start connecting in that way. I create a list in that way. And then, I have different types of ways. It may be, sometimes it's cold calling or cold emailing. And if I'm cold calling, then I'm rehearsing my pitch long in advance. I'm writing it out. I'm writing my script out long in advance. In advance of my call. I'm not just going off the fly. I'm literally word for word, but I'm making it seem like it's coming up, and it's like it's in the moment. Like I'm coming up with these thoughts and these words in the moment. But I am, I'm looking for the right person. Who would this person be? But also when I come, and it's a mindset thing, I'm showing up in the right frame of mind. I'm showing up like I should be on that call, like I do belong, like I am the one that they need to talk to, and that's a hard thing, believe it or not, because people most of the time when we're pitching, if we're not super nervous, the other thought is, do we really belong there? Are we really valuable? Is our project or our product really valuable enough? Is it good enough to be for them to buy into it? And so there's a lot of that. And in order to do that, you gotta really work the mindset first, I believe. And for me, that's a bunch of affirmations. That's a bunch of declarations. That's me, walking around, and I'm just getting this right state of mind to sell myself. And that's why I kind of like to do, where I might do all of the research on other days. When it's time to sell, I got my list and I'm ready to go, because to do, I might do, if you do research and then you go right into making that call, and then you got to go research, you're getting yourself out that saleswoman mindset. All of the work you've done, the declarations and everything that you've done to put yourself in that right frame or that right state of mind, you're pulling yourself out. So when you're making those calls, 9 times out of 10, the first few are going to be clunky. They're going to be choppy. They're not going to be smooth. But then eventually you find your way, because now you're confident in what you're going to say. You know exactly what you're going to say. You know exactly who you're going to ask for, and all of those different things. So, when I'm getting through the door, if it's a cold call or a cold email, I'm practicing beforehand. I know exactly what I'm going to say. I've probably researched and found the person who I should contact. And if not, I'm always asking more questions. Like I have a list of questions that I'm like, who should I be reaching out to? Oh, really? Who would I? If it's not you, who should I talk to? But if I'm going in on an email, then I am, my subject, if I can give one tip, that subject heading, it has to be clickbait. It has to be, it has to present the value, the benefit in it. Right? So I think that's how you should be pitching, but the email should also present some sort of benefit. And the benefit, pitching the benefit means you understand, you've done your research and know what this company or this organization or this person is in need of, right? And so you try to, you're trying to get them to click. And so that's typically what I do for email. That subject heading is everything. And then if I'm calling, I'm really practicing that pitch. But then when I'm actually on that call, I'm listening, right? I'm listening. And I might even say something like, hey, so I've thought through some things. I have what I believe is a really amazing, what I believe is a great project that meets your demographic, or a great product that I think is perfect for your home shopping network, or perfect for your store. It will fit perfectly in this particular area. But before I do that, I want to know, what is your objectives? What is your company's objectives? What is your what is your what is the network? Are you guys looking for this, that, and the other? Because what I have is this, or something like that. So I'm really just listening for the need so that I can feed the need right back to them. And if it's a business, you want to be able to feed the need back to them. And it may mean you listen on the first hand, the first part of that call, and you're not even going in to pitch. And then after you get enough and you've heard enough, you say, okay, well, I have an offering. I want to offer you all. I have something that I think is perfect for you all, but I want to make sure that, I've gotten my presentation right. I've heard your need, and I want to make sure I'm ready and prepared to talk about it. Is it possible that I can, reach back out to you at a later date in a week or so, once I have prepared my presentation to, my offering or whatever it is to you. That way you know, because you've heard them, and then everything in that call, hopefully you're taking a bunch of great notes, and then you're able to give back to them really what they said, which makes it seem like, this is perfect for us. And it's like, yeah, it's perfect because it's exactly what you said on the last call.
Right, exactly what you need.
Yeah, so I mean, this is just general stuff, because I'm not speaking particularly about film or television, pitching TV shows or, that type of thing, and I'm just kind of talking generally. But you do have to be in a place, you have to listen. And even in your research, you're researching, you're listening with your eyes. Whatever you read, like, you're listening to the words, you're you're trying to find the need always. And the moment you lock in on the need, and this takes research. That's why it's not, when you're pitching, you're not just going in, hopefully you're not going in blind. It's like, no, I've done my research. I know what the need is. And then I use what their need is, and then I build that into my pitch.
All right. You're an author of yes, that was a good answer. You're an author of a new book too, 100 Pitches, Mistakes I've Made So You Don't Have to. Can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Yeah, and it's hashtag 100 Pitches, Mistakes I've Made So You Don't Have to. And I can also offer your audience 2 free chapters of the book, too, and I can give you that information at the end if you're interested. But the book is about my journey. Half of it is about my journey to pitching. It started because I would pitch, and my pitches would go so far, but when I didn't get the yes or the green light, I would feel really dejected. And it would take me down, and I would shelve that project and later start working on something else. And then, I would go so far up, and then it didn't happen, and I would shelve that project. And I realized that I couldn't, if I wanted to achieve any type of success, that wasn't going to be the way. I couldn't continue to shelve projects or waste 6 and 7 months in between projects before I picked them back up. And so I went on this journey originally to pitch 100 times, just simply to rise above rejection, so that I can get used to the words no, and that, and it was just that simple. It became more of a journey to help women and people of color, women of color, people of color, because I learned through, asking, like, do you have this? Do you know what to do when they ask for this? Nobody really knew. And I'm like, well, how can we compete? How can we compete with the big wigs? How can we pair up? If nobody knows, and we're just all flying by the seat of our pants, we're faking it until we make it, that sort of thing. And I just, and it became, a journey to learn so that I can journal, and I can figure out what do we do, how to master the art of pitching. And so that's what the book is about. It's about my takeaways, the thing half of it is about the things that I've learned Like, for instance, no is not universal. So while I'm shelving my project, I had no clue why they said no in the end. And I could be shelving a project that's really amazing, but they said no because they already had some other projects that were similar. And they didn't want two projects on the shelf that are similar, right? Or something as minuscule as that. And so no is not universal. And, just because one person said no doesn't mean everybody feels like it's a no. And so I went on this journey to pitch 100 times, and I learned a lot of stuff through that process, sort of mastered the art, and I certainly, learned how to rise above rejection. I mean, the other side of the book is talking to people that have bridged the gap, who have pitched successfully, networks and development heads and producers and people of that nature from, OWN and NBC and BET, Aspire Network, talking to those people and interviewing them so that the perspective is well-rounded. I'm coming from a creative perspective, an independent perspective where we wear a lot of hats and we're trying out all sorts of things to try to make things work. And then, well, what is the other perspective? What were some of the things that you did that worked in your favor to bridge that gap as a producer or as a filmmaker? How did you get that on air? How did you get distribution? Those sorts of things. And then from the suit, as I like to call them, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What do we need to do specifically for you? And so those were some of the interviews that I had for the book. But the goal of the book really wasn't about me as much as it was about helping my people, women of color. And I even asked myself today, like, why did I take on this? Like, why did I feel like that was my burden to carry? But, that's my contribution. That's my purpose, I believe. And so I wrote the book, and, I would, again, if, people want the book, they can go to my website, to the blog, thepitch101.com, and they can get the 2 free chapters delivered to their email.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So again, we'll let you repeat it. I'm going to ask my co-host ask you a couple of questions, and we'll close you out, and then at the end you can give them that website again so to make sure that they can get the chapters of your book.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, Miss Squeaky Moore. How are you?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
So you were just talking about like filmmakers and producers and actors and things of that nature. So my question was, what are 3 things filmmakers do wrong when pitching their scripts?
3 things that I think filmmakers do wrong is that they talk all around it. In a lot of the pitches, so for instance, I was just on tour, and I think in Houston and in Dallas, and we had an opportunity to hear from, filmmakers or content creators and hear their pitches. And I think the biggest mistake is that we think we're pitching, but we're pitching all around the subject. We're even, one of the filmmakers was telling, rather than just going into telling his story in his project, he told how he, I guess he was telling his why, but it became murky. So now he's into telling a story about how he ended up getting to his why, but not really his why. It was about the man that made him get, the reason why he wrote the story. And then he starts telling this whole story about this man, and then he's thinking in his mind, I'm almost sure that he's thinking that he is telling us some of the situations that would potentially show up in this show, but he's only listing them as, them or that, or it's that sort of thing. And so we're talking all around the story or the project, and we're never really saying, just simply telling a story about the story, the project that we wrote. So I think that's the number one mistake most of us make. We're not telling the story that we've created when we go in to pitch. Another common mistake is that we read from the paper. We go in and we read word for word for word because we don't really know where to stop. We don't know what to add. So we create all of these. We create something to go off of, or we actually write out what we want to say, and then we end up reading it. And so that's a big no-no. And to that, I just think, you can practice your pitch. You can practice, like, what are the top 5 things that I must say? If it had to be something really quick, what are the most important things that I want to talk about? And then you practice those so that you don't feel the need to read off the paper. And if you stick to the story, too, that's key, too. But the third thing, I would say, a third thing, a mistake that we make is, a lot of people assume that their project is right for everyone, and it's not. Your project is niche. It falls into a category. Nothing is right for everybody. Every network is not the same. Every studio isn't the same. They don't take on the same project. So to think your project is right for the gospel network and HBO may be wrong, and so, we have to really dig deep and look and research and dig deeper on what is it that they take on and what is it that I take on. And a lot of ways to do that is to look at the themes of the project. What are the themes? You can kind of figure out where your project should land from there. Or, you can always start with what projects are similar to mine and where are they? Where are they housed? Where do they live? And, that's a way you can start, too.
I like that. Thank you. Okay. How do we stay in contact with you? I know you said that we can go online and get 2 chapters of your book. How we can get in contact with you?
Yeah, so all of the information is online. I have 2. I have a website and I have a blog. SqueakyMore.com is my website, and you can also get the 2 free chapters from there. But to learn more about pitching, and you can go to thepitch101.com, thepitch101.com, and there's other pitching tips. There's video and blog, and then all of my contact information is there if you're interested in coaching with me, or if you need help developing out your idea to a fully developed project, you can reach me there. I have a contact page, and but all of my information is there, and all of it is in the book too. So even if you get the 2 free chapters, all of the Facebook groups, the privates, the community groups, and all of that, it's all within the book and all on those sites. So.
Okay, and we can get the book on.
You can get it on SqueakyMore.com or thepitch101.com.
All right, thank you so much, Squeaky, Ms. Moore, for coming on the Life You Imagine show. We are honored to have you here with us tonight.
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys. You ladies.
And we're going to post it in our group and in our Facebook, on our Facebook page, and share it. So again, we thank you, and continue living the life you imagine, you dreamed of living. And thank you for using your gifts to bless others, because you're so right. We have to give back, and thank God for that. You're not afraid to use your gifts. So that is a blessing. Continue to serve.
All right. Well, you ladies have a blessed night.
All right. You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have a commercial break and a word from our sponsor.
I created the Grief Helpline to help individuals bring joy back into their lives after personal loss by providing workshops, retreats, and one-on-one and group coaching. I realized that I wasn't the only one grieving the loss of a loved one. I knew the value of a strong support system and wanted to integrate that into my business. I understand how lonely the journey can feel. and how easy it is to slip into the mode of depression and hopelessness. I was accustomed to saying that I was okay and having long, hard crying spells at home. I had been in a relationship with Paul for over 30 years. When he passed in 2007, the same year I started my business, it took me a while to get over that loss. I was constantly thinking of him, things we used to do and places we used to go together. Then I realized that he was in a better place and wouldn't want to come back here for anything. He was a good guy, and I feel that his spirit is resting. I had to thank God for placing him in my life and finally letting him rest. Again, that wasn't easy to do, but it did deepen my passion for helping others in similar predicaments. In 2009, I became Joy and Grief certified. Now, I had both the personal experience and professional training to go about fulfilling my purpose of helping those who are dealing with grief and having a hard time putting their lives back together. I'm sure you can relate to the fact that moving on after the loss of a loved one isn't easy. It's a struggle. The worst part is when your support system disappears. During the funeral arrangements, you're so wired, trying to get everything done and put away. After that, you realize that no one is calling anymore. The support system that you had when people were sending their condolences and praying for you isn't there anymore. At that point, you realize it's just you. The Grief Helpline, written by Vernessa Blackwell, the grief strategist, and narrated by me, the Queen Bee, Angie B.
Let's give a warm welcome to Miss Indiana Tuggle.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm fine. Welcome to the Life You Imagine show. I'm going to read your bio, share with you're welcome. Share with our listeners. Indiana Tuggle is a 3-time author, speaker, and coach. She turned her testimony of sexual abuse and domestic violence into purpose by helping women heal, uncover their identity in Christ, and discover their purpose. Her books include Stop Asking, Why Are You Single? Saved and Single, and Frustrated, and Awaken the Dream. Indiana has a 4th book, Finding Faith. Lessons Uncovered Through the Storms is scheduled to be released soon. She has a signature program. Her signature program is Right to Heal. It's an online course and where she guides women through the healing process of journaling. Through journaling, she speaks to singles on topics of breaking soul ties and the healing process. Welcome, Ms. Tuggle.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
How did you get started writing books?
Well, I got started writing basically out of my pain because I was so frustrated being single. I wasn't happy, even though I had accomplished many things in my life, such as going to school, having a dependable job in my own house. I still wasn't happy because I thought that having that husband was the missing piece to the puzzle. So when I began writing after I had rededicated my life back to Christ. And writing was one thing that I always had done as a child to communicate with God. And so I started writing through studying the Bible. And when I would hear God speak to me, I would write down what he says. And one day he told me to write the book after I had been questioning why I was single. Why am I single? What's wrong with me? And this is and the other. And I clearly heard him say, look, stop asking me why are you single and enjoy who you are and where you are. And I was in the shower when that happened, and I was like, okay. And then he just started to begin to name off the different chapters of the book. You know, being single is a blessing, not a curse. He that findeth a wife, if you don't get him or her, will you still praise me? And when he started naming off the chapters, I kind of jumped out the shower and I started writing them down. And then I was like, okay. So I went into prayer. I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do with that? And he was like, write the book. And as I was writing the book, I realized that I still had a lot of unresolved issues stemming from a lot of the things that happened in my past, from the bullying, from the sexual molestation, and I still carried a lot of anger and unforgiveness because of those things. And those things were not only keeping me single, but they were also keeping me from enjoying the life that God had for me, and for me basically going forth and accomplishing what He had planned for me in the future.
Wow, that's deep. I like that. That's real deep. Okay, so you had a book release for Finding Faith, the book that you released?
I haven't had a book release for that one yet. It's coming up. I haven't set a release date for it yet. I'm thinking around September. It's with the editor now. But I chose September because that's the anniversary of my mom's death. And with celebrating her life, I always like to do things big or celebrate something in my life around her birthday and that anniversary to kind of keep me from being all depressed, because I'm one of those who I don't think you should grieve a person's death, but you should rather celebrate their life. So I try to do something around those dates as well.
Okay. Yeah, I do that too. Try to celebrate things so that you don't, get depressed.
Right.
I'm sorry for the loss of your mom as well. You have a book, Birth Your Own Book program. It starts in July. What will be included in that program?
Well, the Birth Your Own book is about really teaching those who feel as though they were called to write, teaching them how to basically begin writing their story, as well as how to publish and how to self-publish your book. We're going to start with basically teaching how to identify your reader and research your topic and find your reader, then how to craft your story, and how to go through there, how to basically write your chapters out using my 3-step method, the SRA method of how to write those chapters out. And then we're going to go into the editing process, how to find your editor that best matches you. And then also the different ways in which you can market your book, as well as how to begin to think like a business person as opposed to just an author. Because when you when you write a book, you're more than an author. But when you write a book, you're an author. But when you publish it, you become a business person or a businesswoman. And so you're really having to jump onto this business platform and building your brand. So the course is going to really teach about how to go beyond the book and have a vision beyond the book of how you can impact people with not just your book, but your skills and your services as well. And then after that, we're going to talk about the self-publishing process, really the difference between the traditional publishing and the self-publishing, and really basically everything that you need to self-publish your book. And we're going to end with their book actually being published via Amazon, CreateSpace, Income Spark, iBooks, Barnes & Noble, wherever books are sold. I'm going to basically teach them how to publish their books on those platforms as well.
Oh, wow. That sounds good. Okay, so if you haven't written your book yet, you need to jump on her program that she has starting on July 9th. So don't wait until the last minute, because there may not be no more slots available.
Absolutely. And there's a workshop coming up all June, during the month of June. Each Monday, there's like a Right Start workshop where I'll be giving an overview of the class and basically giving them like a one-on-one of writing, editing, and publishing, so that they can have kind of answer some of their questions that they need to ask before jumping straight into the program. And that workshop is only $25. So it's scheduled for, it's scheduled for each Monday at 7 p.m. In the month of June. So if they're still having questions about it, definitely jump on the webinar and try to get some of those questions answered before you jumping into the program.
Okay. And will it be the same thing every week, or will it be different?
Yeah, it'll be the same thing each Monday. It's basically so that you can pick a date that's going to fit your schedule.
Sounds good. Thank you. And then Pursuit of Purpose, POP.
Yes.
Tell us about
Pursuit
it.
of Purpose is basically based out of my ministry to basically help women heal and find their identity in Christ. And it's just my online community. I basically send them emails and encouragement and update. I have a group on Facebook where we teach different, we talk about different things and different classes each month. And also there is a Pursuit of Purpose broadcast that I do each Thursday, in which I interview different women who have gone through various trials, whether it be molestation, rape, domestic violence, or deathly illnesses, and they've overcome that, and they've learned how to turn that pain into purpose, and they've become authors, they've become businesswomen, they've started nonprofit organizations, and they are really just pillars in their community. And it's basically to empower women, to let them know that your purpose can be birthed out of your pain, and you don't have to stay stuck in victim mode, and that everything that you went through, God can use it, for His glory, if you're willing to serve Him, and if you're willing to basically put it over in His hands. Now, right now, Pursuit of Purpose, that is I'm revamping it, trying to really figure out how to best give the women in my group the best of me as well, so that they can get the most out of it. And a lot of the topics we talk about in the group are kind of like low self-esteem, how to discover your worth, how to basically uncover your purpose, how to go after your dreams and goal planning and things like that. Those are some of the topics that we cover in the group. So right now I'm kind of sitting back and replanning the schedule for the next 6 months for that group.
Oh, wow. Okay. So work your own program book, Pursuit of Purpose. I'm trying to capture everything back on the Facebook page as well, so having to And then you also have a 5-day challenge. I started it last week. When you go on your website, you can sign up for it. And just how they get started with the 5-day challenge.
Yes, the 5-day challenge is a challenge to basically spark for them to, number one, renew and revive their relationship with Christ, and number two, to basically recognize that there is greatness inside of them. And it's based off of my third book, Awaken the Dream, and it's based off of those first 5 devotionals in that book. And in that 5-day challenge, in addition to the devotionals, there are different questions, there are different answers that I really ask them to help them to really examine their thoughts and examine their mindset in regards to who they are in Christ and what faith really is, and really how to move forward after you've been faced with so many things in your past. And in addition to that 5-day challenge, is also a free course as well, where you can listen in onto a lot of my commentary about the 5-day challenge and me just discussing each topic. Is an audio course that goes along with that as well, that they can sign up for as well.
And is that on the website where they go to get both of those?
Yes.
And can you tell us what the website is for those that don't know?
My website is indianatuggle.com.
Tuggle is Tuggle?
Yes.
Okay. And then, last but not least, coming out this spring, Finding Faith Lessons Uncovered Through the Storm. Where did you get the idea to write that book from?
Oh, well, Finding Faith has been one of those books that's kind of been in the making for the last, I say, 2 years. Because what happened is in 2014, I went through
what I call my Job experience. I went through losing my job. My contract ended with my job, and I ended up being unemployed for 15 months. During that 15-month period, I lost my mom and my house. So I lost all of that in that span of a year. And I started writing Finding Faith to really kind of go back and look at some of the things I had been through with the bullying and the molestation and the relationships. I started writing that, but then when the storm happened, when the everything began to happen, I kind of put Finding Faith to the side, and I went into a severe state of depression. And in that depression is where Awaken the Dream came. So in order for me to revive and respark myself, God really had to minister to me personally, and that's how Awaken the Dream came about, because he had to remind me that I was created for greatness, and no matter what comes along, it's still part of his plan, and I can make it through it. So I began writing the devotional to kind of build myself up, build my self-esteem back up, and to pull myself back up out of the pit. But once I got pulled out of the pit, then I had to go back and finish writing Finding Faith, because I wanted to uncover a lot of the lessons that I really learned about what faith really truly is. And basically how to answer some of those questions that we have when we're going through things, like why me? What happens when God stops talking, when you really can't hear his voice? What happens when you are overcome with grief and you don't understand why somebody was taken from you, and you're having to recover from that grief, when you have a lot of regrets and when you have a lot of shame going through that? And then what to do when the storm is over and you're really trying to embrace that new beginning, because a lot of times that new beginning, you're walking around on eggshells and you really don't know if you can trust that the storm is not going to come again. So you're kind of walking around in fear, but how to really embrace that and move on. And then how to be able to speak life to yourself, and to encourage yourself and to really watch what you say, because faith is all about speaking the word, and standing on the word. So it really tackles a lot of those issues that we have about faith. And we always hear people tell us, well, just have faith. Well, when you're going through the storm, just have faith, that seems like fighting words, because in your mind you're thinking, I'm trying, but you really don't know, what that actually means. So I answer a lot of those questions in that book using my own situations and my own lessons that I uncover as I'm really looking back on the storm and on how God brought me through the storm as well.
Wow, that is so awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your books and your programs with us on the Life You Imagine show and our listeners. How do we keep in contact and follow you on social media?
Well, on social media, on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, I am under Indiana Tuggle or Author Indiana Tuggle. A lot of my pages have author in front of my name, so you can find me as Author Indiana Tuggle or just Indiana Tuggle on all platforms. And my website is www.indianatuggle.com.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
This concludes this week's show. Please tune in next week at 7 p.m. on Tuesday. And please don't forget that you can chat with us while on air by logging in with your social media account on our SIBN link.